The key turned in the lock at 11:47 p.m., and I could already smell trouble. Not literally, though there was definitely cologne in the air that wasn't mine. After 3 months providing security for oil executives in the Balkans, you'd think coming home would feel like relief. Instead, walking into my own house felt like entering a potential combat zone. "Logan?" Tessa's voice drifted from the kitchen, artificially bright. "You're early." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Early. Right. I'd texted her my flight details 2 days ago. Either she'd forgotten, or she'd hoped I wouldn't show up when expected. Given the men's size 11 Nikes by the door, definitely not mine, I was betting on the latter. "Hey, babe." I dropped my duffel bag and walked toward the kitchen, keeping my voice casual. 20 years in the Marines teaches you to read a room fast, and this room was screaming danger signals. 2 coffee mugs in the sink, 2 plates, the faint scent of expensive cologne mixing with my wife's perfume. Tessa stood by the counter in her silk pajamas, the ones she usually saved for special occasions. Her hair was messed up in that particular way that doesn't happen from sleeping alone. "How was the flight?" She moved toward me, but there was something stiff about it, like she was performing. "Long, turbulence over the Atlantic." I pulled her into a hug, noting how she tensed slightly. "Hope I didn't wake anyone. I saw there were extra shoes by the door." "Oh, that." She pulled back, not quite meeting my eyes. "Lila stayed over. Girls' night, you know. She had too much wine to drive home safely." Lila, her coworker from the logistics firm. Except Lila wore a size 7, and these shoes were definitely men's dress shoes. Expensive ones. "That was thoughtful of you." I kept my voice neutral, but inside, that old, familiar combat alertness was kicking in. "She leave already?" "About an hour ago, called an Uber." Tessa moved to the refrigerator, opening it unnecessarily. "Are you hungry? I could make you something." "I'm good, just tired." I watched her carefully. In the Marines, we called it reading the terrain, looking for signs of what you couldn't see. And right now, everything I couldn't see was telling me my wife was lying through her teeth. I excused myself to use the bathroom, but instead slipped into my home office. The security system I'd installed before leaving for the Balkans wasn't just for burglars. The door camera kept a log of everyone who entered and left. I pulled up the footage on my phone. 11:43 p.m. Me, arriving home. 10:15 p.m. A man leaving. Tall, brown hair, wearing those expensive shoes. 9:30 p.m. Same man arriving. I scrolled back further. The same pattern repeated over the past month. The man arriving late evening, leaving early morning, sometimes staying overnight. I enhanced the image as much as the camera allowed. The face was partially obscured, but I recognized him. Kellan Drew, Tessa's coworker. The guy she'd mentioned casually in phone calls, harmless office gossip, and just a friend from work. Harmless as a landmine, and I'd been walking through a minefield for months without knowing it. My phone buzzed with a text from Tessa. "Coming to bed soon? I missed you." I stared at the message, then at the security footage showing another man leaving my house 2 hours ago. The rage that built up wasn't the hot, explosive kind. It was cold, calculated, the kind that had kept me alive in 3 combat deployments. I deleted the text without responding and started making plans. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. Old habits from the military. Tessa was still asleep, curled up on her side of the bed like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't been entertaining another man in my house while I was overseas, risking my life to pay for the mortgage on this place. I made coffee quietly and sat in my office, reviewing more security footage. The pattern was clear. Kellan had been visiting regularly for at least 6 weeks. Sometimes he stayed over. Sometimes they went out together, always when I was supposed to be unreachable on assignment. My phone rang. Manny Ortiz, my old Marine buddy who'd gone into private investigation after his discharge. Logan, heard you were back in town. How was Eastern Europe? Educational. I kept my voice low. Hey, you still doing background checks and surveillance work? Depends what you need and how much beer it's worth. I need everything you can find on a guy named Kellan Drew. Works at Coastal Logistics with my wife. And Manny, I need it quiet. There was a pause. Manny had been through 2 divorces himself. He understood the tone. How quiet we talking? Ghost quiet. Can you meet me at Murphy's Diner in an hour? I'll bring coffee and bad news. Those usually go together. After Tessa left for work, kissing me goodbye like the perfect wife, I drove to meet Manny. Murphy's Diner sat on the edge of town, the kind of place where conversations got lost in the clatter of dishes and the hiss of the grill. Manny was already in a corner booth, 2 cups of coffee waiting. He looked older than his 42 years, gray threading through his black hair, but his eyes were still sharp. So, he said without preamble, we talking about what I think we're talking about? Probably. I slid into the booth across from him. What can you tell me about Kellan Drew? Manny pulled out a tablet. Already started some basic searches on the drive over. Kellan Drew, 36, married to Rachel Drew for 8 years. No kids. Works as a senior project coordinator at Coastal Logistics. Makes decent money, drives a BMW, lives in those new condos downtown. Married. I absorbed that. So he was cheating on his wife with mine. Gets better, or worse, depending on your perspective. Manny swiped to another screen. Guy's got a reputation around town. This isn't his first affair. Word is his wife's been looking the other way for years. What kind of reputation? The kind where he targets married women whose husbands travel for work. Apparently he's got a type. I felt that cold rage building again. How many others? At least 2 that I could confirm with a quick search. Both marriages ended in divorce. Both women lost pretty much everything in the settlements. Why? Manny's expression darkened. Because Drew's got a pattern. He doesn't just sleep with these women. He helps them hide assets, manipulates them into making bad financial decisions, then disappears when the marriages implode. The husbands end up looking like the bad guys, the wives end up broke and alone, and Drew moves on to the next target. I stared into my coffee, processing this information. It wasn't just an affair, it was a con game, and Tessa was the mark. Or maybe she was in on it. I need you to follow him, I said finally. Document everything. Where he goes, who he sees, what he does. I need to know if my wife is a victim or a co-conspirator. What's your timeline? Fast. I have a feeling things are going to move quickly once they realize I'm onto them. Manny nodded. I'll start today. But Logan? Be careful. If this guy's as manipulative as he seems, he might have contingency plans. Guys like him usually do. I paid for the coffee and drove home, my mind already working through possibilities. 20 years in the Marines had taught me that the best defense was a good offense. But first, I needed more intelligence. At home, I went through our joint financial accounts. Nothing obviously suspicious, but I noticed some unusual spending patterns. Expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. Hotel charges in the city when Tessa was supposedly working late. A jewelry purchase for $3,000 that I'd never seen her wear. I made copies of everything and transferred my personal funds to an account Tessa didn't know about. If this was going where I thought it was going, I needed to protect myself financially. My phone buzzed. A text from Tessa. Working late tonight, don't wait up. Love you. I checked the time. 2:30 p.m. She was already setting up her alibi. I texted back, no problem, I'll probably turn in early anyway. Still jet-lagged. Then I called Manny. Change of plans. Tonight's surveillance starts now. By 6 p.m., I was parked across the street from Coastal Logistics, watching employees leave for the day. Manny was positioned near the parking garage with a clear view of both Tessa's car and Kellan's BMW. Target acquired. Manny's voice crackled through my earpiece. Your wife and lover boy are having what looks like an intense conversation by his car. I adjusted my binoculars. Even from a distance, I could see the body language. Tessa was animated, gesturing with her hands. Kellan kept looking around nervously, like he was worried about being watched. Smart man. He should be worried. They're getting into his car, Manny reported. Heading your direction. I slumped down in my seat as the BMW passed my position. They were heading toward downtown, not toward our house. I started my engine and followed at a distance, staying several cars back. They pulled into the parking lot of the Ocean View Hotel. Not exactly a place you'd go for a business dinner. I parked where I could see the entrance and waited. 20 minutes later they emerged, Kellan carrying a small, overnight bag. They walked to the hotel restaurant like they didn't have a care in the world. Manny, you getting this? Every second, video and photos. These two aren't even trying to be discreet. I watched them through the restaurant window, sitting close together, Tessa laughing at something Kellan said. She looked happier than I'd seen her in months. It should have hurt more than it did, but the cold rage was insulating me from the pain. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Logan Mercer? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Depends who's asking. My name is Rachel Drew. I think we need to talk. I felt a chill run down my spine. Kellan's wife. About what? About what our spouses are doing right now at the Ocean View Hotel, and about what they're planning to do to both of us. I looked back at the restaurant window, where my wife was holding hands with another woman's husband. Where do you want to meet? There's a coffee shop called Grounds on Maple Street. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I'll be the woman who looks like her life just exploded. The line went silent. I called Manny. Keep watching them. Document everything. I'll be back in an hour. Where are you going? To meet the other betrayed spouse. This just got more complicated. Grounds was a small coffee shop in the older part of town, the kind of place where you could have a private conversation without being overheard. Rachel Drew was easy to spot. She sat in the corner booth, hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it was an anchor. She was attractive in a quiet way, with auburn hair and intelligent green eyes that looked like they'd been crying recently. She looked up as I approached. Logan? That's me. I slid into the seat across from her. How did you get my number? I hired a private investigator 3 months ago, when I suspected Kellan was cheating again. She pushed a manila folder across the table. I know more about your wife's affair than you might think. I opened the folder. Photos of Tessa and Kellan together, credit card receipts, hotel records, text message printouts. Again? I asked. This is his 4th affair that I know of. Maybe more. Rachel's voice was steady, but I could hear the pain underneath. I kept hoping he'd change, kept believing his promises, but this time is different. How? Because this time he's not just cheating, he's planning something bigger. She pulled out another set of documents. Financial records. Your wife has been moving money around, setting up accounts. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger automatic alerts, but consistent. I studied the papers. She was right. Amounts I hadn't noticed individually, but together they added up to significant money. There's more, Rachel continued. I found communications between them about something called the exit strategy. They're planning to leave their spouses, but they want to make sure they come out financially ahead. What kind of exit strategy? The kind where you and I end up looking like the bad guys. Kellan's done this before, Logan. He finds unhappy wives, seduces them, helps them hide assets, then manipulates the situation so the husband looks abusive or unstable during the divorce proceedings. The pieces were starting to fit together, and the wives get the house, the savings, everything. Exactly. Then Kellan and his new girlfriend disappear with the money, leaving everyone else to pick up the pieces. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. Why are you telling me this? Why not just divorce him and be done with it? Rachel's eyes hardened. Because I'm tired of being a victim, and because this time I think we can turn the tables on them. What do you mean? I mean, they're expecting us to react predictably. The betrayed husband, the long-suffering wife. They're counting on us being too emotional or too trusting to fight back effectively. I studied her face. Behind the pain, I could see something else. Determination, intelligence, maybe even a little ruthlessness. What are you proposing? I'm proposing we give them exactly what they deserve, but we do it smart. We do it legally. And we make sure they're the ones who lose everything. I thought about the security footage, the financial records, the pattern of lies and manipulation. I'm listening. Rachel smiled for the first time since I'd met her. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Good, because I have a plan. Rachel's plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of confronting our spouses directly, we would let them continue their affair while we documented everything. More importantly, we would feed them information that would make them overconfident and careless. The key, Rachel explained over our second cup of coffee, is making them think they're smarter than us. Kellan's ego is his weakness. He believes he's the mastermind, that everyone else is just playing their assigned role. And Tessa? From what I've observed, your wife is ambitious, but not particularly cunning. She's following Kellan's lead because she thinks he knows what he's doing. I had to admit that sounded like Tessa. She'd always been attracted to people who seemed more sophisticated than she was. So what's the first step? Rachel pulled out her phone and showed me a text message. I'm going to tell Kellan that I'm planning to file for divorce, that I've had enough of his cheating and I want him out of the house. Won't that make him more careful? Just the opposite. It'll make him rush his timeline with your wife. He'll think he needs to accelerate their plan before I can freeze any assets or expose what he's been doing. I saw the logic. And when he rushes, he makes mistakes. Exactly. Meanwhile, you're going to play the oblivious husband for a little while longer. Let Tessa think she's successfully deceiving you. The more confident she gets, the more evidence she'll leave behind. We spent the next hour coordinating our approach. Rachel would continue her own surveillance while I worked with Manny to document everything. We'd share information and make sure we had a complete picture of what they were planning. There's one more thing, Rachel said as we prepared to leave. I think they're planning to frame you for domestic violence. What? I found some research on Kellan's computer about restraining orders and domestic violence claims in divorce proceedings, plus some searches about how to document evidence of abuse. The cold rage I'd been feeling turned ice cold. They want to make me look like an abuser. It's a common tactic. Creates sympathy for the wife, makes the husband look dangerous, and usually results in him being ordered out of the family home while the divorce proceeds. I thought about my military training, my security work, my collection of firearms legally stored in my gun safe. In the wrong light, presented the wrong way, it could all be twisted to make me look like a dangerous person. How do we counter that? By being smarter than they are. By documenting everything we do, everywhere we go. By making sure we have witnesses and alibis for everything. I nodded. I can handle that. Good. Because once we spring this trap, there won't be any going back. We exchanged contact information and agreed to check in daily. As I drove home, I called Manny with an update. So we're working with the other wife now? He asked. Looks like it. She's got intelligence we need and she wants revenge as much as I do. Just be careful, Logan. Sometimes the enemy of your enemy is still your enemy. I know, but right now she's the best ally I've got. I got home just as Tessa was pulling into the driveway. She looked flustered, her hair slightly messed up, her lipstick gone. Hey, she said, grabbing her purse from the passenger seat. How was your day? Quiet. Caught up on some sleep, did some unpacking. I kept my voice casual. How was work? You look tired. Long day. Lots of meetings. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I'm going to take a shower. Sure. I'll start dinner. As she headed upstairs, I noticed she was carrying her phone with her instead of leaving it on the kitchen counter like usual. Another sign that she was hiding something. I made spaghetti and waited. When she came back downstairs, she seemed more relaxed, like the shower had washed away whatever stress she'd been carrying. "This smells great," she said, sitting down at the kitchen table. "Just something simple." I served her a plate and sat down across from her. "So tell me about these meetings. Anything interesting happening at work?" "Oh, same old stuff. Budget reviews, project timelines." She twirled spaghetti around her fork without much enthusiasm. "Actually, there might be some layoffs coming. The company's been struggling." "Interesting. That wasn't what Manny's research had shown. Coastal logistics was actually doing quite well financially." "That's tough. Are you worried about your job?" "A little, but I think I'll be okay. I've been working closely with some of the senior coordinators on important projects." Senior coordinators like Kellan, no doubt. "Well, if anything happens, we'll figure it out. We always do." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks, Logan. I know I can always count on you." The irony was almost too much to bear. After dinner, Tessa said she had some work to catch up on and disappeared into the spare bedroom we used as a home office. I could hear her on the phone, speaking in low tones. I went to my own office and called Rachel. "Any updates?" I asked. "I confronted Kellan about the divorce like we planned. You should have seen his face. He tried to look upset, but I could tell he was excited." "Did he say anything useful?" "He asked about our finances, wanted to know if I'd talked to a lawyer yet. Then he said he might need to stay at a friend's place for a few days while we worked things out. Let me guess, he's planning to stay with my wife." "That would be my assumption." "How did Tessa seem tonight?" "Nervous, distracted. She's definitely planning something." "Good. Let them plan. Tomorrow, I'm going to start phase 2. "Which is?" "Making Kellan think I'm going to take him for everything he's worth. That should motivate him to move quickly with whatever scheme he's got planned with your wife." After we hung up, I sat in my office thinking about how much my life had changed in just 2 days. 48 hours ago, I'd been looking forward to coming home to my wife. Now, I was planning her downfall with her lover's wife. But as I thought about the lies, the manipulation, the plan to frame me as an abuser, I realized I didn't feel guilty about what we were doing. Tessa and Kellan had made their choices. Now they were going to live with the consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from Manny. "Got some interesting video from tonight. You're going to want to see this." I smiled grimly. Phase 1 was already paying dividends. The video Manny had captured was damning. Tessa and Kellan at the hotel, but more importantly, audio of them discussing getting Logan out of the house and something about making it look convincing. Rachel and I met the next morning at a different coffee shop to review the evidence. "This is it," she said, watching the video on my laptop. "This is them planning to frame you. The question is, how do we use it? Carefully. We need to let them make the first move, then counter it with evidence that destroys their credibility." My phone rang. "Tessa." "Logan, I need to tell you something." Her voice sounded shaky, scared. "Kellan's wife found out about us. She's threatening to tell you everything." I looked at Rachel, who was listening on speaker. She rolled her eyes. "What are you talking about?" I made my voice sound confused, concerned. I've been having an affair with a coworker. I'm so sorry, Logan. It just happened, and now his wife is going crazy, making threats." "An affair?" I put just the right amount of shock and hurt in my voice. "How long?" "A few weeks, maybe a month. I was going to end it, I swear, but she found out and now she's saying she's going to ruin both of us." Rachel was making exaggerated gestures, clearly enjoying the performance. "Who is he?" I asked. "His name is Kellan. Logan, I'm scared. His wife is unstable. She's been calling me, saying terrible things. I think I think she might try to hurt me. And there it was, the setup. Make Rachel look like the crazy, jealous wife. Make Tessa look like the victim. Where are you now? At work. But I don't want to come home. What if she follows me there? Come home, Tessa. We'll figure this out together. Are you sure? You're not angry? I'm hurt. But we can work through this. Just come home. After I hung up, Rachel shook her head. She's good. I almost believed her myself. So what's the real plan here? She's going to come home, probably with some fake evidence that I've been threatening her. Then something will happen. Maybe I'll show up at your house. Maybe there will be some kind of confrontation, and you'll end up looking like the dangerous one when you try to defend her. How? Think about it. You're a former Marine with weapons training. If there's any kind of physical altercation, who do you think the police are going to assume is the aggressor? She was right. I'd seen it happen to other veterans. The moment things got physical, everyone assumed the guy with military training was the problem. So we need to control the situation. Exactly. And I have an idea how. Rachel's plan was risky but brilliant. She was going to play the role they'd written for her, the crazy, jealous wife, but we were going to document everything to show it was an act. I'll come to your house tonight, just like they're expecting. But you're going to have cameras recording everything, and Manny's going to be watching from across the street. What about Tessa? She'll probably call the police the moment I show up, but when they arrive, we'll have video evidence showing that I never threatened anyone, never got violent, never did anything that would justify their claims. And then? Then we show them the real evidence, the affair, the financial manipulation, the plan to frame you. We turn their trap against them. I spent the afternoon setting up additional cameras around the house and briefing Manny on his role. By the time Tessa came home, everything was in place. She looked genuinely scared when she walked through the door, which was impressive acting. Logan, is everything okay? Has anyone come by? No, it's been quiet. Are you okay? I keep getting these text messages. She showed me her phone. Look at this. The messages were from Rachel's number, but they were clearly designed to look threatening. You can't hide forever. I know where you live. You'll pay for what you've done. I knew Rachel had sent them as part of our plan, but they looked convincing. We should call the police, I said. No! Tessa's response was too quick, too panicked. I mean, not yet. Maybe she'll calm down. I don't want to make this worse. Of course, she didn't want to call the police. Not until everything was set up the way they wanted it. Tessa, if this woman is threatening you, we need to report it. Let's wait. Maybe tomorrow. We had dinner, but the tension was thick. Tessa kept checking her phone, kept looking out the windows. She was waiting for something. At 8:30, the doorbell rang. Tessa jumped like she'd been shot. Oh God, that's probably her. I went to the door, knowing exactly who I'd find. Rachel stood on my front porch, and she looked every inch the part of a woman on the edge. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes were red from crying, and she was holding a manila envelope. Are you Logan Mercer? She said loudly enough for Tessa to hear. Yes. Can I help you? I'm Rachel Drew. I think your wife has something that belongs to me. Tessa appeared behind me, staying well back from the door. Logan, don't let her in. She's unstable. I'm not unstable, Rachel shouted. I'm angry. Your wife is sleeping with my husband. Ma'am, I think you should calm down, I said, playing my role. Calm down? She's been screwing my husband for months and you want me to calm down? Rachel waved the envelope. I have pictures. I have evidence. I know what they've been doing. Logan, call the police, Tessa said from behind me. She's scaring me. I'm not here to hurt anyone, Rachel said, lowering her voice slightly. I just want her to know that I know, and I want you to know what kind of woman you're married to. She thrust the envelope toward me. Look at these pictures. Look at what your precious wife has been doing while you were overseas. I took the envelope, knowing that everything was being recorded by multiple cameras. Ma'am, I appreciate your concern, but this is between me and my wife. Is it? Because I think there's more going on here than just an affair. Rachel's voice got louder again. I think they're planning something. I think they want to take both of us for everything we're worth. That's crazy! Tessa shouted. Logan, she's crazy! Make her leave! I'm calling the police, I said, pulling out my phone. Good, Rachel said. Call them. Let them see the evidence. Let them know what kind of people they're dealing with. She turned and walked back to her car, but not before saying loudly, This isn't over, Tessa. I know what you're planning, and I won't let you get away with it. As soon as Rachel drove away, Tessa collapsed into a chair, shaking. Oh God, Logan, she's completely insane. Did you see how angry she was? She seemed upset, I agreed. But Tessa, are these pictures real? I opened the envelope, revealing photos of her and Kellan together. Photos that looked damning, but were actually carefully selected to show only the affair, not the deeper conspiracy. Tessa started crying. I'm so sorry. I was going to tell you. I was going to end it. How long has this been going on? A few weeks, maybe a month. I was lonely while you were gone, and he was kind to me, and it just happened. The same timeline she'd given me on the phone. Consistent lies. Tessa, I need you to be honest with me. Is there anything else? Anything else she might have evidence of? No, it was just the affair. But Logan, I'm scared. What if she does something crazy? What if she tries to hurt me? We'll deal with it. Tomorrow we'll go to the police and file a report about the threats. Okay, thank you for not being angry. Thank you for protecting me. I held her while she cried, knowing that everything she was saying was a lie. Knowing that in a few hours, when she thought I was asleep, she'd probably call Kellan to report that phase 1 of their plan had worked perfectly. But what they didn't know was that our plan was working perfectly too. I pretended to sleep while Tessa made her phone call to Kellan at midnight. It worked exactly like you said it would, she whispered. She came to the house, made a scene, and Logan totally bought that she's unstable. I couldn't hear Kellan's side of the conversation, but I could fill in the blanks from Tessa's responses. Tomorrow, we go to the police. Yes, I'll tell them I'm afraid for my safety. No, he doesn't suspect anything about the money. I think we can move to phase 2 by the weekend. Phase 2. I made a mental note to ask Rachel what she thought that meant. I love you too. This is almost over. The next morning, Tessa suggested we go to the police station together to report Rachel's threatening behavior. I agreed, knowing it would give me a chance to control the narrative. Detective Sarah Morrison took our statement. She was professional but thorough, asking detailed questions about the timeline and Rachel's behavior. Has Mrs. Drew made any specific threats of violence? Detective Morrison asked. Not exactly, Tessa admitted. But she was very aggressive. She said, this isn't over, and that she wouldn't let me get away with it. Get away with what? The affair, I assume. She's angry that I was seeing her husband. Detective Morrison made notes. Mr. Mercer, how did Mrs. Drew seem to you? Upset. Angry. But not necessarily dangerous. I was careful to sound fair-minded. I can understand why she'd be emotional about the situation. We'll make a note of the incident, Detective Morrison said. If Mrs. Drew contacts you again or comes to your property, call us immediately. In the meantime, I'd suggest you and your wife consider couples counseling to work through the affair. We're planning to, I said. We want to save our marriage. Tessa squeezed my hand gratefully. As we left the police station, I suggested we get lunch and talk about our relationship. Tessa agreed, probably thinking it was part of her plan to keep me unsuspecting. Over sandwiches at a quiet restaurant, I played the hurt but forgiving husband perfectly. I need to understand how this happened, I said. Was it something I did? Something I didn't do? No, Logan. It wasn't your fault. Tessa reached across the table to take my hand. I was just lonely, and Kellan was there, and he listened to me. What did you talk about? Everything. My dreams, my frustrations, my fears about money. She paused. He made me feel important, like my opinions mattered. Your opinions matter to me too. I know, but you're always so strong, so capable. Sometimes I feel like you don't need me. It was a good performance. If I hadn't known about the financial manipulation and the plan to frame me, I might have believed her. I do need you, Tessa. We can work through this. Really? You're not going to leave me? I'm not going anywhere. She smiled, and for a moment it looked genuine. I'm going to end it with Kellan today. I'll tell him it's over. Are you sure? What if his wife gets even more upset? I have to. What we had wasn't real anyway. It was just a mistake. That afternoon, while Tessa was supposedly at work ending her affair, I met with Rachel and Manny to review our evidence. We've got them on audio planning something called Phase 2, I reported. Any ideas what that might be? Rachel pulled out her laptop. I think I know. Kellan came home this morning talking about how well everything was going. Then he spent 2 hours on the phone with someone discussing the domestic violence angle. Meaning? I think they're going to stage some kind of incident that makes you look violent. Something that will justify getting a restraining order against you. Manny leaned forward. What kind of incident? My guess? They'll claim you threatened Tessa, maybe pushed her around. She'll have some convenient bruises, maybe a torn shirt. You'll be arrested, charged with domestic violence, and kicked out of your own house. The pieces were falling into place. And while I'm dealing with criminal charges and a restraining order, they'll have free access to the house and all our joint assets. Exactly. Plus, Tessa will look like the sympathetic victim in any divorce proceedings. So, how do we counter it? Rachel smiled. By making sure you have an unshakable alibi when whatever they're planning happens. We spent the next hour coordinating our counter strategy. The key was to make sure I was somewhere public with multiple witnesses when Tessa claimed I'd attacked her. There's one more thing, Rachel said as we were wrapping up. I found out where they've been meeting. It's not just hotels. Kellan has been using a cabin that belongs to a friend of his. Somewhere they think they can talk freely. Can we get surveillance there? Already on it, Manny said. I've got a camera positioned where it can see the entrance. If they're planning the details of Phase 2, that's probably where they'll do it. That evening, Tessa came home looking emotionally drained. I did it, she said. I told Kellan it was over. How did he take it? Not well. He was angry, said I was making a mistake. He even said some things about you. What kind of things? He said you'd never forgive me. That you'd probably become violent when you had time to really think about what I'd done. And there it was, the setup for Phase 2. Tessa, I would never hurt you. You know that, right? Of course. But Kellan seemed to think. He said men like you, with military training, sometimes have anger issues. Men like me? You know, soldiers, people who've been in combat. She looked uncomfortable. He said I should be careful. I felt the cold rage building again, but I kept my voice calm. Tessa, I've never been violent with you. I never would be. I know, but what if Rachel tells people that you are? What if she tries to make you look dangerous? The setup was almost complete. They were going to claim that Rachel had planted the idea that I was violent, and then when I attacked Tessa, it would seem like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Let me worry about Rachel, I said. You just focus on us. Okay. She kissed me on the cheek. I'm going to take a bath. This has been the hardest day of my life. As she headed upstairs, my phone buzzed with a text from Manny. Got them on video at the cabin. You need to see this tonight. I waited until I could hear Tessa running water in the bathtub, then slipped out to meet Manny. The video he'd captured was the smoking gun we needed. Tessa and Kellan at the cabin discussing the exact details of how they were going to frame me. She'll claim he pushed her down the stairs, Kellan's voice was clear on the audio. Maybe grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises. What if he has an alibi? He won't. You're going to call him home from wherever he is, make it sound like an emergency. Then when he gets there, you'll already be hurt. How do I explain the injuries? You fell down the stairs because you were upset about ending our affair. But when he got home, instead of comforting you, he got angry and made it worse. Tessa's voice. And then I call the police. Right. Domestic violence, possible assault charges. With his military background, they'll take it seriously. What about the restraining order? Automatic. He'll be out of the house within hours, and you'll have access to everything. I watched the video 3 times, feeling a mixture of rage and satisfaction. They'd just handed us everything we needed to destroy them. When is this supposed to happen? I asked Manny. Based on what they're saying, probably tomorrow night. Perfect. That gives us time to set up our counter trap. I drove home, knowing that in less than 24 hours, Tessa and Kellan's world was going to come crashing down around them. The next day, I made sure to establish a very public presence. I had lunch with 3 former Marine buddies at a crowded restaurant, went to the bank to discuss a loan with a manager who knew me well, and spent 2 hours at the gym where I was a regular member. At 6 p.m., right on schedule, my phone rang. Tessa, sobbing hysterically. Logan, you need to come home right now. Something terrible has happened. What's wrong? I fell down the stairs. I think I might have broken something. Please hurry. I'm calling an ambulance. No, just come home, please. I was at the gym, surrounded by witnesses. The conversation was being recorded by my phone. Everything was perfect. I'll be right there, I said. Instead of going home immediately, I called Detective Morrison. Detective, this is Logan Mercer. We spoke yesterday about my wife's affair and the threatening behavior from the other woman. Yes, Mr. Mercer. What can I do for you? My wife just called me, claiming she fell down the stairs at our house. But based on what happened yesterday and some things she said about the other woman making threats, I'm worried this might not be an accident. What do you mean? I think Rachel Drew might have come to my house and hurt my wife. I'm heading home now, but I wanted to give you a heads up in case we need police assistance. We'll send a unit to your address right away. Thank you. I'm coming from the gym on Oak Street. I should be home in about 15 minutes. The call established several important facts. I was at the gym when Tessa was injured, I was concerned about my wife's safety, and I was the one who called the police. I drove home at normal speed, knowing that Tessa would be expecting me to rush. When I arrived, there was already a police car in the driveway. I found Tessa in the living room, talking to 2 officers. She had a bruise on her arm and her shirt was slightly torn. She looked up when I walked in, and for just a moment I saw surprise in her eyes. She hadn't expected the police to arrive first. Sir, are you Logan Mercer? One of the officers asked. Yes. Is my wife okay? What happened? I fell down the stairs, Tessa said quickly. I was upset about everything that's been happening, and I wasn't paying attention. When did this happen? The officer asked. About 20 minutes ago, maybe 30. The officer made a note. And where were you, Mr. Mercer? At the gym. I can show you my keycard log if you need it. That won't be necessary right now. Mrs. Mercer, do you need medical attention? I don't think so. Just some bruises. Ma'am, are you sure you fell? These injuries look like they could have been caused by someone grabbing your arm. Tessa glanced at me and I could see her making a calculation. This was her moment to accuse me, but the police had arrived before I did, which complicated her story. I'm not sure. Everything happened so fast. Mrs. Mercer, has anyone threatened you or made you feel unsafe? Yes, she said quietly. Rachel Drew, the woman I told you about yesterday. She's been calling me, sending messages. Has she been to your house today? I don't know. I was upstairs when I fell, but I thought I heard a car in the driveway earlier. The officers exchanged glances. We'll need to speak with Mrs. Drew. Actually, I said, I think there's something else you should know. I pulled out my phone and played the audio from the cabin surveillance. The room went silent as Kellan's voice filled the air. She'll claim he pushed her down the stairs, maybe grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises. Tessa's face went white. What if he has an alibi? He won't. You're going to call him home from wherever he is? Make it sound like an emergency. The officers looked at Tessa, then at me. Ma'am, do you want to explain what we just heard? Tessa started crying, but these weren't the manipulative tears from before. These were tears of panic. I can explain, she said. I think you should, the officer replied. But before Tessa could say anything else, my phone rang. Manny. Logan, you need to know. Kellan just showed up at the cabin with suitcases. Looks like he's planning to run. I put the call on speaker. Can you repeat that for the officers? Kellan Drew just arrived at the cabin with what looks like luggage and a laptop bag. Based on his body language, I'd say he's preparing to leave town. One of the officers immediately got on his radio. We need units at the Pineview Cabin Resort. Suspect may be attempting to flee. The other officer looked at Tessa. Mrs. Mercer, I think we need to have a more detailed conversation at the station. Am I under arrest? Not yet, but I strongly suggest you cooperate with our investigation. As they led Tessa to the police car, she looked back at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not sadness, but something like respect. How long have you known? She asked. Since the night I came home. She nodded slowly. I should have remembered that you were trained to notice things. Yes, I said. You should have. 2 hours later, Rachel called me with an update. They arrested Kellan at the cabin. He had almost $50,000 in cash and a fake ID. What about the money? Turns out it was from multiple sources. Some from his joint accounts with me, some from your joint accounts with Tessa, and some from at least 2 other women he'd been scamming. Other women? The FBI is involved now. Apparently Kellan's been running this con for years, targeting military wives whose husbands were deployed. You and Tessa were just his latest marks. I sat in my empty house, processing this information. My wife hadn't just been unfaithful. She'd been part of a criminal conspiracy that had destroyed multiple families. What happens now? Now they both go to prison. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted extortion. Kellan's looking at 10 to 15 years. Tessa will probably get 5 to 7 if she cooperates. And us. We get our lives back, and we get to watch them lose everything they thought they were going to steal from us. After we hung up, I walked through my house, seeing it differently now. It wasn't the home I'd shared with a loving wife. It was a crime scene, a place where I'd been systematically betrayed and manipulated. But it was also the place where I'd turned the tables on people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Tessa. They're letting me make one call. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. You didn't deserve this. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Some apologies come too late to matter. 3 months later, I sat in a courtroom and watched Tessa plead guilty to conspiracy and fraud charges. She got 6 years in federal prison. Kellan got 12. Rachel and I had coffee afterward, not as co-conspirators anymore, but as 2 people who'd survived something terrible. Any regrets? She asked. I thought about it. No, they made their choices. We just made sure they lived with the consequences. What will you do now? Start over, clean slate. That sounds nice. As I drove home to my empty house, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The war was over, and for the first time in a long time, I'd been on the winning side. Justice isn't always pretty, but sometimes it's exactly what the situation requires.